Some people in the outside world may not be aware of the special significance all the Egyptians attribute to the fact that the Holy Family, when Christ was an infant, found heaven in Egypt for nearly 4 years after their flight out of fear from the persecution of King Herod. On the 24th day of Coptic month of Bashans, which corresponds to the 1st of June, the Coptic Church celebrates the entry of Lord Jesus Christ into the land of Egypt. The advent of the Holy Family to Egypt seeking refuge is an event of the utmost significance in our dear country's long history. Moved by the spirit of prophecy, Hosea, for those applied from Bethlehem, where there was no safe place for Christ child to lay his head, and the eventual return of the refugees from their sanctuary in Egypt, where Jesus had found a place in the hearts of the Gentiles, when he uttered God's words, "Out of Egypt have I called my son." Hosea chapter 11 verse 1. In the biblical book of Isaiah, the prophet provides us with a divinely inspired prediction of the effect the Holy Infant was to have on Egypt and the Egyptians. Behold, the Lord rides on a swift cloud, and will come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt will totter at his presence, and the hearts of Egypt will melt in the midst of it. Isaiah 19:1. For Isaiah goes on to prophesy, in that day there will be an altar to the Lord in the midst of the land of Egypt, and a pillar to the Lord at its border, and it will be for a sign and for a witness to the Lord of hosts in the land of Egypt. According to the traditions of the Coptic Church, the altar mentioned is that of the Church of Virgin Mary in Al-Muharraq Monastery, a site where the Holy Family settled for a period of more than 6 months. And the altar stone was a bed upon which the infant Savior lay. Al-Muharraq Monastery is located literally in the midst of the land of Egypt, standing at its exact geographical center. As for the pillar at its borders, which will be for a sign and for a witness. Let's start now the journey to Egypt. According to the sources of the Coptic Church, chief among which is a vision documented by Pope Theophilus and recorded in the Coptic Synaxarium, the Holy Family proceeded from Bethlehem to Gaza, and thence to El Zarniq, also known as Flusiyat, some 37 kilometers west of El Arish. Then they threaded their way along northern Sinai until they reached Farma, ancient Pelusium, midway between El Arish and the present-day Port Said. It was their last stop in Sinai, and with the next leg of their journey, they put the perils of the wilderness behind them. Tel Basta, which they now enter, is a short distance from the Gazik, the main town in Sharqiya Governorate, about 100 kilometers northeast of Cairo. Here Jesus caused the water spring to well up from the ground, and his presence caused the idols to crumble. As foretold by the prophets of old, the townsfolk in consequence turned malevolent and aggressive, whereupon the Holy Family turned their backs on the town and headed southwards. In due course, they reached Mustorod, which came to be called in those days El Mahma, only about 10 kilometers away from Cairo. Al Mahma means the bathing place, a name given to the town because Saint Virgin Mary bathed the Christ child and washed his clothes. It is worthy of note that, eventually, on their way back to Palestine, the Holy Family stopped once more time at Mustorod, and this time caused a spring to gush from the earth, which still flows forth to the present day. Stop number 3, Bilbis. From Mustorod, the Holy Family made their way northeastwards to Bilbis, back in Sharqiya Governorate, and at a distance of about 55 kilometers from Cairo. They rested there in the shade of a tree, which came to be called the Virgin Mary's tree. Having left their mark on Pelbis, the Holy Family set off in a northwesterly direction and reaching the small township of Minit Samanud, crossed the Nile to the city of Samanud in the Delta, where the local population received them with a kindness and hospitality that earned them deserved blessing. There is in Samanud to this day a large granite trough which, according to local belief, was used by Virgin for kneading, and a water well which the Christ child himself hallowed. Again towards the northwest, the Holy Family now traveled until they reached the city of Sakha in the Lake District of Brolos, in the present-day governorate of Kafr el-Sheikh. The Coptic name of the town Bicha Isus means the foot of Jesus, for the Holy Child's footprint was marked here in bas-relief on a rock. The foot was preserved but hidden for centuries for fear of robbery, and only unearthed again about 15 years ago. The natural course of the Holy Family journey from Samanud to Sakha would have taken them through many of the towns and cities now lying in both governorates, Garbeya and Kafr el-Sheikh, and according to some folk traditions, through the Pilkas wastelands as well. Their trial from Sakha is recorded in the commentation of Pope Theophilus' vision and attested to by Coptic practice in the Christian era, for it was to Wadi Natrun, or Natrun Valley. Now they came, after crossing the Rosetta branch of the Nile to the western delta, and heading south into Wadi Natrun, then called Al-Iskit, in the western desert of Egypt. In the earliest decades of Christianity, the desert expanses of Wadi Natrun became the site of anchoritic settlement, and later of many monasteries in spiritual commemoration of the Holy Family's passage through the Nile. And now you can visit 4 of these monasteries: El Suryan, Abu Makar, San Pishoy, and El Baramos. Eventually, they left the desert behind them and made their way southwards, crossing the Nile to its eastern bank, and heading for Matareya and Ain Shams, ancient Heliopolis, the site of the oldest university in the history, called since earliest pharaonic times On. Both 2 districts, El Matareya and Ain Shams, about 10 kilometers far from city center of Cairo. At the time the Holy Families arrived there, Ain Shams was home to a large Jewish community who had erected a temple, the synagogue of Ones, for their worship. In Matareya, a tree still stands to this day, still regularly visited, called Mary's tree, for the family is believed to have rested in its shade. Here too, the infant Jesus caused water to flow from a spring, from which he drank and blessed, and in which the Virgin washed his clothes. She poured the washing water on the ground, and from the spot the fragrant balsam plant blossomed. Besides the healing and the pain-soothing properties of this pulp, its essence is used in the preparation of the scents and the perfumes of which the Holy Chrism is composed. Setting out next towards Old Cairo, the Holy Family rested for a while in Zaytun. On their way, then proceeded along a course which traverses what are now crowded, bustling quarters of Cairo, within which the serene landmark of an earlier Coptic heritage still stand, marking the path the Holy Family followed. A listing of these landmarks at this point may be of interest. In central Cairo, the Church of the Virgin Mary in the Wela Alley, the Church of Saint George the Martyr, the Church of Saint Mercurius Abu Sifin, he of the two swords, the Convent of the Virgin Mary, the Convent of Saint George. Now the Holy Family within the area of Old Cairo. In the downtown district of Cloud Bay, the Cathedral of Saint Mark in Asbakia. Numerous churches attached to Cairo headquarters of many of Egypt's monasteries. The Church of Virgin Mary, known by the name Isbawiya. The area now called Old Cairo, known as Masr al-Qadima, is among the most important locations visited by the Holy Family, where the spiritual impact of their presence is most felt still. Though their stay was brief, for the governor of what was then Fustat, engaged by the tumbling down of idols at Jesus' approach, sought to kill the child. But they took shelter from his wrath in a cave above, which later years the Church of Abi Serga, or Saint Sergius, was built. This and the whole area of the Fort of Babylon is a destination of pilgrims, not only for the Egyptians, but for Christians around the world. The Church of Abi Serga and the crypt of Holy Family beneath it. Al-Mu'allaka, the hanging church dedicated to the Virgin Mary. The Church of Saint Barbara, the Church of Saint George in the place of waxworks. The Church of Virgin Mary, identified by alternative name of Qasrat al-Rihan. The Convent of Saint George, the Coptic Museum and Rampart of the Fortress of Babylon. Here, too, it's useful to list the sites which visitors to the Fortress of Babylon section of Old Cairo take in. The Coptic Museum and the Rampart of the Fortress of Babylon. The Greek Orthodox Church of Saint George. The Jewish Synagogue of Ben Azra. After their short but all too felt stay in Old Cairo, the Holy Family moved in a southern direction, reaching the modern Cairo suburb of Maadi, which in earliest pharaonic times was an outlying district of Memphis, the capital of Egypt. Then, at Maadi, they boarded a sailing boat which carried them up the Nile towards southern Egypt. The historic church built up on the spot from which they embarked, also dedicated to the Virgin, is further identified by the dominative El-Adawiya, the Virgin's Church of the Ferry. In fact, the name of that now modern suburb, Maadi, derives from the Arabic word which means the crossing point. The stone steps leading down to the river bank and believed to have been used by the Holy Family are accessible to pilgrims through the church courtyard. An event of miraculous import occurred on Friday the 3rd of Coptic month of Barmhat, the 12th of March 1976 AD. A holy Bible of unknown provenance was carried by lapping ripples of the Nile to the bank below the church. It was open to the page of Isaiah, chapter 19, verse 25, the page declaring, "Blessed be Egypt, my people." The Bible is now behind glass in the sanctuary of Virgin Mary, in the church for all to see. The sailboat docked at the village of Deir el-Garnous, Upper Egypt. Outside the western wall of the Church of the Virgin, there is a deep well, is believed to have provided the Holy Family with the water they needed. They went on from there to a spot later named Abai Isos, or the home of Jesus, the site of the present-day Sandafa village, east of El-Bahnasa, which itself stands some 17 kilometers west of the town of Bani Mazar. On towards the south, they went from Bahnasa to Samalut and crossed the Nile again from the town to the spot on the east bank of the river, where the monastery of the Virgin now stands upon Jabal Ittir, the Bird Mountains, east of Samalut, 2 kilometers south of Ma'adiyat Bani Khalid. It's known by this name, Jabal Ittir, because thousands of birds gather there. The Holy Family rested in the cave which is now located inside the ancient church there. Jabal Ittir is also called Jabal al-Kaf or Palm Mountain, Coptic tradition mountain that, as the Holy Family rested in the shade of the mountain, Jesus stretched his little hand to hold back a rock which was about to detach itself from the mountainside and fall upon them. The imprint of his palm is still visible. When they resumed their travels, the Holy Family passed the laurel tree, south of Jabal Ittir, along the pathway flanking the Nile and leading from the mountain to Nazlet Ibid and the new Minya bridge of today. It's claimed that this tree bowed for worship the Lord Christ, glory be to him, as he was passing. The configuration of the tree is indeed unique, all its branches inclining downwards, trailing on the ground, then turn upwards again, covered in a cloak of green leaves. They call the tree El-Abid, the worshipper. Once more, crossing the Nile, back to its west bank, the Holy Family traveled southwards to the town of Al-Ashmunin, or Hermopolis Magna. But it seemed that they did not tarry long there, leaving behind them the rubble of fallen idols. They continued still in southerly direction for another 20 kilometers to Dairut al-Sharif or Qusqam. Here too, the recorded events testify that the town folk was infuriated when the stone statue of their local deity cracked and fell, and evicted the Holy Family from the town. A historically recorded incident dating to that period refers to the devastation of Qusqam, and Coptic traditions assert that the ruin that befell the town was a consequence of its violent rejection of the gentle visitors. We have an entirely different story in the warm welcome with which the Holy Family refugees were met at their next stop at Mir, only 7 kilometers west of Qusqam. Here they found only consideration and hospitality wherever they went, for which treatment the town and its people were signally blessed. Now, it was time for the Holy Family to set out for what is the most meaningful destination of all in the land of Egypt, the place where there would be an altar to the Lord in the midst of the land of Egypt, Jabal Mount Qusqam, which takes its name from the town nearby, which stands in the governorate of Asyut, the monastery of Al-Muharrak. The Holy Family remained there over just 6 months. Their time was spent mainly in the cave, which became in the Coptic era the altar of the Church of Virgin Mary, built at the western end of the monastery compound. The altar stone was the resting place of the child Jesus during the months he dwelt there. The whole area, the monastery and the surroundings, named by the Copts of Egypt the second Bethlehem. It was here, at the very spot where Al-Muharrak Monastery stands, that the angel of the Lord appeared to Saint Joseph in a dream and said, "Arise, and take the young child and his mother, and go into the land of Israel, for they are dead which saw the young child's life." Matthew chapter 2 verse 20-21. It took them to Mountain Dronka, 8 kilometers southwest of the city of Asyut, and their blessing of this location was commemorated in the Christian era by the building of the mountain monastery of Dronka. And so they set forth on the return journey. The route they took deviated slightly from the one by which they had came. Eventually they arrived at Old Cairo, then Matorea, and Tumahma, retracing more or less their steps on their outward journey across Sinai. Egypt's repaving of the route the Holy Family followed is part of a comprehensive policy to revive a nationwide project. If you enjoyed this video and wanna watch more videos about Egypt, click subscribe and the bell. Stay tuned for more interesting videos. Thanks for watching.